Hi, folks. Good evening. Thanks for joining me tonight. Whether you're on Facebook or YouTube or wherever, stop by, say hello. Be happy to share your comments. And we have some folks who are going to pop in. At least a couple of them. I know that. Hopefully, some more will stop by. But I'm going to go through. This is Bill. I'm from AT Makers. If you don't know that, I'm not sure why you're here, but welcome. We are going to talk tonight about kind of the past year, briefly, and then talk about a couple of lessons learned and some changes that I think we need to make. I did some of this last year. It took forever. So I'm going to try very hard to be short this year. It's quick this year, and I'm bad at that. So let me apologize in advance for failing that. Chad Lehman is in the chat on Facebook, and look, I can put that up there. See, look, there's Chad. So if any of you guys would like, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to take the invite to this, and I'm going to go ahead and post it right in the comments on Facebook. So want to join? Have something to say? Don't join if you don't have anything to say. Click here. I can put you into the StreamYard thing if you'd like to join at any time. Okay. So hi, Paul. Paul's here as well. It's probably time to get started and not get focused on who's here. So I'm really glad to be here. For those of you who don't know, I'm kind of lucky to be here. I had a little run-in about a month ago. Lost 25 pounds in a week due to COVID. I guess that's one upside of it, but you don't want to lose weight that way. You certainly do not want to get that disease. COVID is a nasty, awful disease. So get your vaccination unless you have a really good reason not to. And be careful, especially around people that you, if you're not sure they're vaccinated and you're not, be good. So I see, so I can see Chris is here and Jake is here and John Jordan and Dimitri, and I will have all of them join in a few minutes. So good. We're going to have actually some conversation, not just me chatting at the screen. But let's talk a little bit about some things that have happened over the past year. Oh, by the way, thank you, everybody who wished me well, everybody who prayed for me when I was in the hospital. It really does help. I don't know whether the prayers help, but I do know that the well-wishing helps, because every time you'd see somebody saying like that, it reminded you you're not alone. And one of the big problems with COVID is you are so alone. You are so isolated that it was very, very difficult. So thank you all for that. There are some good things that have happened this year, although the year sucked. It really sucked. Even like little stuff sucked. Like ATIA got canceled. We didn't get to see the teens down here. They did still present. Some of the kids were able to still present remotely. Not all of them. But it definitely, we missed them coming down and having some in-person stuff. We missed a lot of in-person stuff this year, but some good things happened. To be honest, the biggest success this year was the robotics teams. In spite of the fact that they weren't meeting, they weren't having their competitions were all canceled, they still got their part of this done. And some of them grew their AT groups within the robotics team. Riptide did fantastic. IntelliKeys, the IntelliKeys keyboards are still getting the support they need, only because Riptide decided, and Leanne Brewster and her kids decided to, respond to every request, get them made, get them shipped, get everybody supported. That's fantastic. Gravy made a ton of the Freedom Wings, hundreds of them, and we'll talk about distribution of those. But as far as the manufacturing and quality, this is the only bad one out of all the ones that they have sent me. I've tested them all, and this is the only one that has a short between its. And we'll say Steve Bowman did that one. We're not going to blame the kids on that. So they've done fantastic on the quality of these and the production of them as well. They also won the Chairman's Award at the local at the regional awards. I'm not sure which of the competitions it was, but they recently posted that they won the Chairman's Award. That gets them through to Worlds. It's a very big deal as far as the extrinsic reward goes. I know they're all doing it for the right reasons, but you got to be happy that they're being celebrated for it. So lots of things like that on the robotics team side has been absolutely great. So in spite of the adversity, the kids are doing fantastic. Another big pro this year is the corporate involvement and the partnerships. And part of this might be, I don't know, I don't want to guess too much about why it is, but it is certainly true that we are seeing corporate players more interested in assistive technology and more interested in AT solutions that aren't necessarily commercial. I guess that's the best way to describe it. So both Microsoft and Google have asked me to participate in groups with them. Microsoft came out recently, their CEO came out with a great big disability and inclusion initiative that they announced. I happen to know there are other things going on there that are exciting. Google has a expert group, Ask an Expert, or Google Experts, Trusted Experts program. They invited me, and because of that, today I actually was interviewed by the MS Society, the National MS Society, Multiple Sclerosis Society, which is interesting because I don't think we have any MS. I don't think any of our AT users have MS. I don't think that's the reason anybody has come to us, and it's an entire population that I don't think realizes we're here, and that we're certainly not serving well if we're serving at all. So I love the fact that we're kind of getting into other areas, which is good. Finally, we are moving forward, slowly but moving forward, with Georgia Tech. I'm actually bringing some of the ideas and methods that we're using directly to instruction at the college level at the Center for Inclusive Design. Ben Satterfield's working with me on it. And I would love for that to be going faster, but we can't meet in person and there's a lot of issues. So hopefully that will move over the summer. We'll make additional progress on that, but it is still there. And I love the fact that Georgia Tech wants to add a 4-credit course on design for non-standard bodies, whatever that ends up being called. So I love that that's there, and I'm delighted to be involved with it. So those are some good stuff. If anybody's got other good stuff that I should talk about this year, tell me. Post them in the comments. I'll be happy to bring them up. I do want to talk about some lessons we learned. We might as well start with the real negative that I learned, and I already learned this lesson, but we learned it again this year, which is we need to be directly involved when our solutions are delivered. We learned that back with FAST years ago when the kids who actually implemented all the adapted toys weren't able to be a part of the distribution because of the way the time was set up. They distributed them in the middle of finals at 3 in the afternoon or 2 in the afternoon. So we learned then that we need to be more involved and more hands-on and meeting the recipients that we're working with. And we made a mistake with that on the Freedom Wing. And so a lot of things, when COVID hit, things didn't get delivered. And that's a bummer. If you are waiting for a Freedom Wing, reach out to us directly at AT Makers. We have some here. Eric Carson took over the list of people that we knew had been dropped, and all of those are out, and they've all been tested, and they've all been supported. But we do know there are people out there who asked for Freedom Wings, and they weren't provided. So if that has happened in your world, let me know, and I will, or let us know, and I will be very happy to make sure that doesn't remain that way. So I'm glad to be healthy. I'm very happy. So somebody said it's nice to see you healthy. I am. I'd say I'm 90% back to normal. I have slight, stamina issues. I get tired, but that's about it. And the coughing is finally almost completely stopped. So unless I talk too much, a lot too much, I'm just fine. So yeah, I'm happy to be back and healthy. So that's our biggest downer this year is what happened with the Freedom Wings and the distribution of that. The other lessons that I learned here I really learned it in the hospital, right? So in the hospital, I learned that my company is fine. It is staffed so that if I disappear, if I get cancer and I'm in chemo for 3 months, or I don't know, if something awful happens and I can't be involved at Lesson Picks, my company, we are really well covered. We didn't drop a penny. We didn't drop an account. Everybody's still happy. And I really kind of don't feel that way about AT Makers. So I felt when I was in the hospital, I kept thinking about all of the things that weren't going to get finished unless I continued doing them. And I think it's a flaw. I think it's something that we as an organization need to take some time to look at. We can't let somebody be a bottleneck like I am right now. I don't want to be. I'm not intentionally being a bottleneck. I'm not intentionally trying to get everything through me. It might be a bit of a control issue, but I'm willing to take that criticism from anybody who wants to give it, as long as they're also willing to step up and help me manage some of these things. So I thought about an awful lot of you who have devices that we've made. I kept thinking, but wait, we haven't finished whatever the project is. And it sucked. I didn't like it. I didn't like that at all. So I'd like to work on improving that this year. And it's a really hard challenge. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. The last thing is we need to I think we need to change our focus, or at least change something that people feel about us. People think that we're a place to go to get free assistive technology. I think we really should change that. I don't think we've ever actually said that. We've always said that we want to make things more available. We said that things are too expensive, that it's crazy that this device is $13,000 and I can make it for $150. But I think we need to focus on access and making things accessible and affordable, rather than worrying about people who can't afford it and making it free. And I think that's going to drive a few things. So I have some stuff to talk about. But actually, let me drop out to some people who actually have joined here. So let me add Chris and John and Dimitri and Jake, and see. I don't know if I can. So you guys are all muted, and I can't. No. So. Jake and John and Chris, if you'll either turn on your mics or your camera. There's John. I think he'll show up on the screen. So we got Jake and Chris. So if they join us, they'll pop up on the screen. So turn on your mic if you want to show up and chat with us. So Dimitri and Don, for those people who don't
I can talk, but I'm without webcam today.
Oh, that's okay. So that's Chris. That's Chris Young, who is sans video today, and we'll see if Jake Jordan joins us or not. But these are some folks that have helped design boards with us, right? So we actually have a working group where we talk about making custom boards. And Dimitri is amazing. We're going to talk about one of yours in a minute, because it has driven me to rethink how we're doing some things. John actually worked with me a long time ago on these. And has been designing and helping us design boards ever since. Chris Young and I made this one, which is the infrared board, which we're going to hear about in the near future. And also, these are the folks who show up when we have meetings discussing AT Makers. So I'm glad you're all here. John, anything this year that I missed on the good things that have happened at AT Makers?
Nothing comes to mind offhand.
Yeah. It's been a tough year. It's been a really tough year. Dimitri, you came from left field for us. I mean, for the people who don't know, he sent me a note a while ago about his project Mimosa, and I'm like, yeah, another engineer who's got a cool project he wants me to look at. Turns out what he did was really cool and funded, and I didn't have to jump in or help or anything. In fact, he ignored all my advice. But you're actually now getting more involved with us, right, Dimitri?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely been a pleasure tapping into the plethora of your experience in the field and learning the real user stories and user considerations, because I'm fairly new to AT, and the project really started as a part of the hackathon here at Google that then grew into something that we are trying to ship to the users now. And so that's and that's in those terms, we're solving very similar problems that AT Makers is trying to solve with some of their hardware as well. So we kind of like started working together, which works out.
It's led to some really interesting stuff, right? Let me walk through. I'm going to walk through in a minute. Let me talk for a minute, Dimitri, and then I want to show this, and we're going to show it in depth. And he knows what it is. Nobody else does. John does. A few people do, but it's so cool. But I do want to talk through some examples here of what has worked and what hasn't. Let me just take this for a second, and you guys can stay on. You're fine. You're fine. You don't have to like hide yourselves. And feel free to interrupt me if I say something wrong. We've had some really great successes. IntelliKeys has been phenomenal. They make it, Riptide makes these devices, they program them, they ship them, they find key guards for people. It has been great, and it has been managed by people outside of AT Makers, right? So Alyssa Wern doesn't work with us. It doesn't work for us. Leanne Brewster works for PK Young. They have taken that on and they have kind of owned it, and it's been great. They come to me when they need more parts to make things if they run out and things like that. But otherwise, they don't need everything to go through a central hub to be able to deliver that. The Freedom Wing also has been a great success in that we've made a device that works, and it got so much publicity and so much attention brought to AT Makers that it's been a fantastic success, even though we had serious problems with delivering them, and we are working on that. We have some real problems. Like we have products that are absolute failures. This one's entirely mine, and it's entirely my fault, and it's something I want to be able to stop. So this right here is a joystick. It has a camera mount on the bottom. Shocking. You plug in 2 aux cords, and you immediately plug this into the back of an XAC, and you get a joystick that you can press, and it's also a button, and you can control it with your wrist. And 2 ATIAs ago, we knew this was going to be a hit, and it's not available anywhere. I don't have a team willing to take it on, or willing. I have not placed it with a team. I want to take the control of this in. So somebody whose name I can't see says, I want one, right? But this needs to be out there, and it's not expensive. In fact, I got all the parts here. I even ordered the stupid parts, and there's nobody making these, and there's none being shipped. That to me is a failure. It's one that we need to look at and see, how do we make sure that this doesn't have, we also have to get these shipped. But we need to look back and say, how would we have actually gotten this thing, out into the public? Another really good one is the key switch. I don't know that I have one here. I do. I always have one within reach. We've made a lot of these. We've given them away at conferences and stuff, but there's no place you can get these, right? So the key switch is a little tiny Trinket M0 that has 5 appropriate AT switches on the front, and it's a great programmable smart keyboard interface, and it's not available. It's not accessible. Let's say it that way. It's not accessible for most of the people. So Bob says, what is in the way? I mean, what is stopping it? What is in the stopping it from being available? Coordination, distribution of control, or at least delegation of control, and really structure of the organization. That's what happened here, and we need to fix it. Another one, and John's going to hate it. I'm going to turn him back on just so you can all watch his face when I say this, but this is a failure too, right? We didn't ever get this. As much as it technically is great, it's not out there and it's not being used, and that's entirely on us, right, John? On me. It's entirely on me.
It's a fabrication issue. It's very hard to get that GPI extender working. It's soldered there correctly.
Yeah. So so we can worry about how to make them effectively, but we didn't find, when we found problems with the relays, we didn't follow through and solve it. Right? And we're gonna see in a minute that's one of the problems we have to work on this year. So I have some suggestions, and one of them is driven by Dimitri. So Dimitri, I'm gonna switch to a different camera. I don't know if I can do this. I'm going to do this one way or the other. It's going to be ugly, and y'all can deal with it. But I'm going to go to this view here. There you go. This is the best I'm going to be able to do. All right. So I want to remind folks that this is, I don't know why they moved the focus on this. This is what the Freedom Wing looks like, right? So it's got a port for your joystick for your power chair, and on the other end, it comes out as a USB port that you can plug in. And originally, this was made to support able gamers and to be able to let this be an input to the Xbox Adaptive Controller. In reality, it makes it a USB device. So if you want it to be a mouse, it can be a mouse. If you want it to be a keyboard, it can be a keyboard. As we've learned, as Chris Young has learned, if you want it to fly a drone, it'll fly a drone, right, Chris? He'll say yes in a minute because he flew a drone with me. But it's a great, absolutely, right? So it's a great device. And the way we made it, if I can get it out of here, is that we made a wing. So we made this part, and Gravy made a ton of them. They made 100 of them. They made more than 100. They made 100 recently. They made probably 250 total. But they made these. And so this is a custom PCB board that's got soldered on 6 resistors, a little Pololu voltage regulator, some diodes, and some headers. And it's not a crazy hard thing to make, but it's got some real cost associated with it, right? So in order to make this, even if you just look at what this would cost, it's probably $3, $6, $7, $8, probably $10 in parts to make this piece. But then you got to put a feather on it, right? And so like even the cheapest feather, and this is not the cheapest feather. The cheapest feather I think now is like $13 or $14. But like this is $20. The Bluetooth ones are $25. It's a significant cost. You're talking about a total cost just in terms of parts. I think another buck or two and time to print the case. You're really talking about $30, $35 into each one of these, plus a significant amount of time assembling them. And we can do that. And we can do that in small batches because this is an outreach program for a robotics team. And along the way, we're going to write the software that works in it. And we're going to test this and make sure that it works. But once we find a design that works, once we find a solution that works, once we find that we have a demand, leaving this in the hands of volunteers and leaving this in the hands of especially relatively inexperienced volunteers can be problematic, right? You can have failures. We haven't seen any failures in these things. These kids have rocked. But long term, that's not going to be an issue. And it doesn't really get the accessibility that we'd like. It doesn't make things as available to people as we'd like. So Dimitri, while I was in the hospital, sent me a note that said, hey, I did something really cool. I made one of these. And he sends me a picture that looks just this. And I'm like, well, what the hell is that, right? So what it is just ridiculously cool. And yes, he hand soldered this thing, which is not quite handy. So he did it under a microscope, but still it's crazy. So what this is this has everything on it that this has. So he took exactly what we're doing here. He took the voltage regulator. He took the resistors for the voltage dividers. He took the jack. And he put it on this ridiculously tiny surface mount board. that instead of having a feather interface, right, has what's called a quick connector or a stemma QT connector on Adafruit's terms, and you can plug it in. And now you can plug this into absolutely any microcontroller that has a quick connector. This one right here is a QT Py 2040, but it is it's fairly common now to get microcontrollers that have this. And if this is available as one part, people who can't make this or this can still assemble a solution by using a microcontroller and just plugging it into this. And I love this. The other neat thing about it is that the entire thing, parts-wise, so Dimitri, bill of material on this is $7-10? What is it?
I don't remember exactly, but I think it's under $6, I would say, dollars, including the PCB.
Okay. And then if we wanted to get assembled, it would be another $3 or so. So we'd be at $10 to $12 assembled.
Something like that.
Quantity of 100 or something like that. Right. So that's a game changer, right? All of a sudden, this piece is $10 and there's no labor because we had it assembled by PCBWay or Oshpark or whoever, and it comes looking like this. And this to me was an eye-opener. We had a meeting of the PCB designers, and everybody agreed. Chris O'Dowd was there, and everybody said, yeah, that's really what you should be doing, because this makes it far more available to the AT users than the way we've been doing it. Now, I have a caveat to that and a rebuttal to that as well. Paul Hewitt from the ACE Center says, that's very neat, Dimitri. I'll put it in here. There you go. Very neat. This was one of those things where you look at it and you're like, no freaking way, right? And it turns out he's got several of these little stemma QT things designed. Dimitri, do you want to show the little yellow one or not yet? Yeah,
sure. No, yeah. Maybe not yet. Maybe not yet.
Not yet?
Yeah, maybe not yet.
All right. So let's put it this way. He might have something this size that destroys the microlight in terms of light touch switches. So is that fair to say?
Well, I don't like the negative light that you shed with the light with the word destroy. I would say augment microlight.
How about this? So what do you think the minimum activation force will be on the thing that you designed?
Its sensitivity is probably under a gram.
Under a gram. And completely programmatic up to 50 grams, 60 grams?
Probably more than that.
Right.
You can really press. The dynamic range is pretty good.
Yeah. So I am excited about it, right? The fact that we can take other parts like this and put them on that is very exciting. So you'll see more stuff from us on this coming shortly. But it is something where I took a look at this and I thought, well, what should the process be? It can't be just do this, right? Because the truth is, I think that's part of where, John, you and I got off track on this. We did Ella's project, a one-time project. We said, oh, that's going to be really useful, and we see more uses for it. Jim Lubin told us what he needed for his, and we designed a part. We sent it off to PCBWay, and they came back with fully assembled parts that we spent a good deal of money on. And I don't think that's the right answer either, right? So what I like, and an approach that I think will work for us, is to kind of do what happened with the Freedom Wing, right? So with the Freedom Wing, we had a request from one person. I made a one-off device for Steve Spawn and shipped it to him. It looked like, let me go back to my other camera. Sorry. Nobody ever said this is going to be a high-quality production, okay? So it looked like this. It was on a breadboard. I mean, it's soldered, but it was a train wreck. It looked awful. It was not well designed, but it proved that it would work, right? It proved that we could do this. And then the next piece of it was we got a PCB made, right? We made a board, and it ended up looking like this. And we took the time then to, you'll notice that this says Rev D on it, right? See right here, it says Rev D. So over the time that Gravy has been working on this with us, we've had, four revisions of this that have found issues with it. Like one of them added the ability to short these. Another one added these diodes. Another one found out that the something was just dead wrong with it. I think this was set up for a female jack or something. Like we assumed that the male and female pinouts were the same, and they're not. Something like that. But we learned lessons. We wrote the software. We spent 2 years, almost a year and a half on this to get it right, to figure out what lessons there were to be learned. And then Dimitri could look at this and say, okay, well, I'm going to do the voltage divider. He and I talked about this before he actually had it made. He got a little, this is an inductor. I forget what that chip's called, but he got a boost converter. Yeah, he got a boost converter that was tiny enough and that worked. It needs an inductor and a couple other chips. This actually, this empty spot is to put another one of these so that you can daisy chain another quick connector. He just didn't populate that one because he's lazy, or maybe because he's out of it.
Optimal.
Yeah. So, but we learned the lessons from this, and we made this. Well, okay, we've got other projects that are at the stage where we've learned the lessons, right? The IntelliKeys adapter right now is at the stage where we've learned the lessons. It's dead solid. We should look at, do we want to go through a design for manufacturing phase like Dimitri did and get these as something that people can just buy? And that's going to be a conversation that's going to need some conversation. It has to happen with other people in the group about whether we should offer these things for sale. And I'll talk more about that in a little bit. But I do think that this is a path that kind of works, right? We look at something and we say, whoops, wrong camera. I really want to be able to change camera easier in this thing. So we look at something and say, okay, we've got a need. We've got a first client, right? We need it's called an MVP in certain circumstances, a minimum viable product. We've got something that we can actually push out. We work with that one client, we get it done, and then we learn the lessons. Then let's get a robotics team. Let's get a group of kids who are willing and want to work with the AT community. Let's get them to make it. If it's popular, if we've got 20 people who need it, let's get that team to make them and learn how to make a bunch of things and test a bunch of things and troubleshoot and work with people on the phone and deliver them. And ideally, learn more lessons there. We learned a ton of lessons while Gravy was working on it. Let's do that. And then if it becomes something where there's going to be an ongoing demand, and this would enable lots of people to do lots of things, let's go through a process and make it a component that people can just buy. So there are some things we have to talk about on selling. I see a comment about it down here. Somebody who didn't let StreamYard, and I don't blame you for not letting StreamYard comment. But yeah, we got to talk about the FCC stuff in a second. But I think it's a path that is that's worth doing. Okay, I think that it is something that if we don't do it, I think that in the long run we are putting the well-being of people into groups that aren't even going to be there in 3 years. In 3 years, there won't be one kid. 4 years, there won't be one kid on the robotics team that is there today. Hopefully, you'll have the same fantastic leader like Leanne or Steve Bowman. But in reality, we should have options for the things that we know aren't going away. Right? This isn't a one-time project. Right? This is something where we know these are going to be used in lots of scenarios, and they're going to be useful. And I think that we should be looking at that. Alyssa Warren, who is a part of the Gainesville group who does the IntelliKeys. So we've got to have a plan for going beyond the robotics group helping us out. Yep, we sure do. And it can't be Bill starts a product company. Okay, that one is not going to happen. I would love it. I don't know who else is on here right now, but I would love it if somebody else wanted to start a product company. Might want to work with us, but not like Dimitri's on the screen or anything here. But you never know. We may find that there are commercial vendors or there are commercial companies that want to start up. Obviously, all of our designs are licensed. Obviously, maybe you guys don't know this. All of our designs are licensed in a way that you can take them commercial. So our software is MIT licensed, unless there's a reason that it's something else, and usually that is another one of the very liberal open source licenses like Apache. It's never proprietary and it's never patented. And all of our designs are Creative Commons share alike, and that includes commercial use. So any commercial company can take our designs and just do them. So let's talk a little bit about what would need to happen to be able to do this. And then I have a suggestion on a first pilot for doing this methodology. Okay. So what would have to happen for us to be able to, let's just do this one, right? So we want to be able to sell this. It turns out it fits directly into the Adafruit Stemma Qt and SparkFun quick ecosystems. So the truth is we don't have to make the whole ecosystem. They've already got it. They've already got the wires you can buy and the microcontrollers and all the other sensors you might need. It would drop right in there. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. But we have to do some tactical things. We actually have to be able to make enough of them that a distributor like Adafruit would want to carry them, or we have to have a process in place to do just-in-time manufacturing ourselves when we want to provide them, both of which have their own challenges. Somebody whose name I couldn't see, because whoever it is, hi John, hi Dimitri. Thank you for coming back in. I don't know if I just put you back in or not. But there are some things. Somebody had just suggested FCC certification. Paul Hewitt says an MDR in Europe, equivalent elsewhere. Yes, there are certification issues that need to be cared for or dealt with. The bigger problem with that is on things that radiate energy, right? So, and there's an argument that all these things radiate, but the hard FCC certifications are things like Bluetooth chips. And Dimitri, you had the NRF52 in your Mimosa project. That would need an FCC certification, not just a rubber stamp kind, but the kind that actually has to go in and get tested and see what its emissions look like and things like that. So there's a cost associated with that. We'd have to have something in place that could absorb that cost and recover it over the course of recovering sales from the product. In the case of something like this, it doesn't have a radiating, it doesn't have anything that radiates RF, radio frequency. Whether it needs to be certified or not, I don't think so, but we can ask. That's certainly a question we would then have to ask it on every single item, and we'd have to get legal opinions on them, or at least some progress on that. Another bigger one, and one that we have to do on every product, is we will have to carry product liability insurance. There's no way around that. And it will limit what we can provide, right? We cannot provide mobility aids for sale because we will never get product liability for what we built for Ella. I think I saw on here that Ella and Erica were here. So hi, good to see you. We can't, if we make a box that lets you control your power chair, we would have to charge a ton of money for it just because the insurance would be insane. People can drive their chair off a cliff or into a road. Things absolutely, switches fail in the on position, right? We will have to give direction on what we approve our products to be used for and not. So I know that there are challenges with that, and I'd love it if there are people with more experience. It sounds like Bob Pod from the chat here is saying, it sounds like he knows more about this stuff than I do. I'm certain that there are lots of people who know more about this. We do have the benefit of having the ear of some people who sell a lot of products like Adafruit. I think I could probably get on a call with Phil and Lamore and Phil Burgess and ask, pick their brains about what works and what doesn't, what it costs. Can't do that often, but I certainly could do that as we start this. I'm certain of that. But I definitely think it's worth looking at, because I think it does immediately means two big things. It means we're not relying on the outreach of a team long term. Like Riptide right now is doing such a fantastic job with IntelliKeys that I want them to continue to support the user. But I also want the kids on that team to be able to start the next project and go through a design phase and go through a development phase. I don't want them only doing customer support going forward. And by having a product that we can drop in there, it allows them to continue doing the support part, but not only still be able to work on the next project. The other really, I don't know. I think it allows us to. Let me just give you the quote from my sister. I don't know how to actually say this, but I was talking to my sister about this, and she said, "Oh, I might finally have something I can do to help." And that's just something that somebody non-technical says, "Oh, you might have inventory, you might have order management, you might have, coordination with vendors. These are skills that we've never needed before." And it might open up to other people in our community who don't have technical skills to design what Dimitri did, including me. I couldn't design this, but can help with other aspects of this. So I think that would be worth at least investigating whether we want to do it. Let's see. We have hey, Paul. I guess that's one of the advantages of sharing an open design for local manufacturer, is that the local manufacturer will assume some sort of liability responsibility. Yes. So there is, believe it or not, I've spoken to both insurance people and lawyers over the past 2 months. Actually, before I got sick, we were having this conversation. There isn't much difference in the liability of doing things for free and doing things for sale. Except for the fact that I don't think people are likely to sue you if there's no money. But as far as legally, you are just as liable in the case where you're just as liable whether you charge for it or not. In other words, not charging something for something does not remove your liability risk. I think that is something, Jake, I don't think you can unmute your mic, but if Jake or Chad want to speak up, I think that's something that Makers Making Change is dealing with as well, in that they have the same kind of scenario where, okay, we're telling people to build this. What happens if the way they assemble it or even our instructions create a fire hazard, create a risk for somebody? Where are we on risk? Jake, you are still muted. I think I might have lost Jake. So I'd love to hear, either in the comments or elsewhere, what other people's experiences are. But I think I should tell the community that I don't want you guys to be surprised or think I'm selling out or think anything rotten's going on if we decide to offer some of these things up for sale. I think that there's a lot of people out there who could take this and these, assemble them, put them into even a homemade case, and have something amazing for $20, $30, far more than could assemble the Freedom Wing. So Paul says, great, same applies here with medical devices. It's about putting the device into service, right? That's exactly right. And there's a big gray line there that I don't want to be pushing on there. There are people out there who want to make and others who want to buy. I think it's a great idea. So that's the truth. And I am all for supporting the people who want to make first and making them our primary audience. But it's absolutely true that we tell people no a lot. On both the Freedom Wing and the IntelliKeys adapter, we tell people no. I'll give you a great example. I have one. I always seem to have something here. So take off the key guard. So here's a really good example of a no, right? So here's a IntelliKeys keyboard that has been converted to be a gamepad. I did it. I did it for ATIA last year, and somebody saw it, and they really wanted one of the adapters, and I sent them one because I had shown it to them at ATIA. But in reality, we don't want more people on the IntelliKeys, at least not for free, right? We don't want more people dependent on this for any part of their independence. So it is definitely, there are people we've said no to. There are teachers who say, I've got a classroom full of 15 kids. This would be great for them on the IntelliKeys, but we don't want to be putting them on that. So when they ask, we won't make them free ones, but I think we'd sell them to them, right? I think that's a different thing. We're not asking robotics kids to donate things. If somebody wants to use an IntelliKeys to play the guitar and they're not disabled, we're not going to say yes to them for being free. But I have no problem with them just buying it, right? So let's see. So I work for a medical software company. Our blood bank module software is FDA licensed. So it's not just hardware as the device. Absolutely true. Oh, look, I got Judy in Milan. Hi, Judy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
It's Judy Schoonover, for those of you who don't recognize the voice. I wasn't certain, but I am now. And Malad Ha has joined us as well. Also, no video. There's Malad. Hi, Malad. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good to see you. So Malad is a big part of this too, in that he also is making things that connect to Stemma QT. In fact, he's probably made the next version of this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully we
So,
can use the demo in addition to that in the new versions. Hopefully.
yeah. You want to share your screen or?
Oh, to show it, let me bring it up while you're talking.
That's okay. Yeah. Tell me when you're ready. That's all good. So, yeah, we have. I think that there's probably. I'm going to mute you for a second, Malad. I'll leave you up. So, I can see you and hear you, Malad. They can. It's all good. There's a lot of stuff where I think we can make components that fit into the Quick and Stemma QT ecosystems really easily, and then we can leverage the IMUs and all the other things, the proximity sensors and everything else that's already there. So I see somebody's talking about class 1 versus class 3, which is beyond my knowledge. So Malad, if you get the if you get your screen up, let me know and I will. You need to say share it, and I need to say yes. So tell me when you're ready for that, okay? And if you don't want to, you don't have to. Your call.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. So share your screen.
Let me figure out. I've never used this.
There's a button at the bottom that says share, and it'll ask you what you want to share, and then I have to actually put it into the thing. By the way, StreamYard is great, but it's better when people had more time to practice with it. There you go. All right.
Does it show now?
Yeah, it's up there.
Okay. So this is the device. This actually shows better picture. So basically, 4 jacks. Another jack is
So it's
for
a joystick.
on the hip. Yeah, joystick, and then there's a stemma here, which I need to figure out how we can make it work. So if I can connect sensors or other things to it, and then this is the LED. So if you see here, there's a cutout for the LED, and then this is
I love the green.
green. Oh yeah, 80 Maker Twin.
I'm going to take you over from Makers Making Change.
And then there's another version. Let me go to my GitHub page. So there's this is another one. This is based on ECBT, same idea that as the other one.
So one of the things that Milad and I realized, and let me go back to this view for a second. One of the things that Milad and I realized was that we were designing exactly the same thing, right? We both were trying to design a replacement for the key switch that worked around this chip right here, which is pretty darn cool chip. QT Py is a really great design, and with the RP2040, it's kind of crazy. And we decided, look, this is stupid. So we are doing better at coordinating that, but it is it definitely, we are starting to standardize, right? So far we've standardized on a few things. We're standardizing on the Xbox adaptive controller wiring for switches, right? So that means that like the basic switches are the same. They're the two conductor switches, but when you get to something like wherever I put that joystick, I'm out of, oh, there it is. When you get to something like this joystick and you've got 4 conductors on it, let's use the one that the XAC uses for all of our devices. That way, we're not reinventing that. They've already published it. Let's just stick to it. So we are starting to do that. We also have Stemma QT or Quick, which is the same thing, as a standard interface for all of our sensors. I think it's going fairly well in terms of we're limiting the number of things we're working with. I think, well, you and I haven't talked about this one in a while, but this is the right way to do this, right? Because we can immediately add the joystick from a power chair directly to the switch that you had there because it has the Stemma QT port, right?
Are there any other better type of cables that we can use for Stemma?
Better type of cables. Yeah, I wish there was. So one of the problems with it is they're all separate, right? So they're all they're not like wrapped up in something. So no, and so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how to, if we needed to go a longer stretch, we'll probably make an adapter that goes from this to a 4-conductor aux cord. I can't think of a better plan. Dimitri's dying a little bit inside because his entire thing was originally set up on a 4-conductor aux cord. But you've seen the light, right, Dimitri? You understand the benefit of the QT.
Absolutely.
So I am. I'm going to go back to the comments here for section C. Okay, and let's take a look at. Let's see who else is here. Judy.
Yes,
Judy, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Why don't you turn your camera on?
Because I'm lounging. I've been doing yard work all day. I'm not good for public consumption right now.
All right. Well, I'm glad you're here. For those of you who don't know, Judy is one of my all-time favorite occupational therapists. And if you're ever trying to recover from something, she will tell you all the things that you're doing wrong. Right?
Well, yeah, I think Alyssa has a lot to do with that too.
Yeah, the two of you. Yeah, that's my other favorite occupational therapist. But you're up in Michigan, and so for those of you who don't remember, Judy and her partner do the and I don't remember your partner's name. Do the art kit. Yeah, Debbie Schwinn. Do the art kit at ATIA. So that great PVC, make a million things out of PVC. It's awesome. There's Alyssa, so she's here too. So one of the things that I don't know, and Judy, maybe you can help me. Did I miss anything positive in the last year? Because honestly, I had a really hard time coming up with those positive things. Has it just been that crap of a year?
No. Oh. There's been a lot of crap, but I think the wonderful thing not wonderful, but I think that people are starting to see the value of maker items, because when everything shut down, people didn't have the resources that they were used to, especially in schools
Yeah.
where a classroom is equipped with every kind of positioning equipment available, the communication supports and everything else. And then they went home and they didn't all have dedicated equipment. So all of a sudden, I think that people, number one, pulled together and that people started listening to each other and brainstorming. And number two, I think a lot of parents became more of an active team member. And I also think that parents were empowered by creative people to make some of their own equipment. And that makes a huge difference. Whether it's a final piece of equipment or it's the beginning of a prototype, because you all makers, you know that a lot of what you've done is a prototype for something fabulous, and you
Yeah.
have to start somewhere. So I think that there is a seed of change. I think there's a seed of, well, we don't have to have the $10 million thing right away. We can do some other things, and not that we want to go the cheap route, but we can make sure it's the right route before we invest the big dollars and have abandonment. So I do think that there's some good things. And I think people talk to each other more and people make themselves available more. And you certainly have made yourself available even while you've been ill. And I think that that's a valuable thing.
I mean, that's rehab for me. So that it was very hard to not be a part of this and the Lesson Picks community. Like being out of pocket was so hard for me. So it's not a matter of, I'm not sacrificing to get back involved in this. It's very good for me. But yeah, I do appreciate everything else you said there. I will tell you and everybody else here, I was in a chat with them at the MS Society today, and at the end they said, give us your 3 takeaways. If anybody's going to leave the chat today, what do you want them to know? And I gave them 3, and I'll read them back to this group because I think it's important that you recognize what I'm saying about you. Okay. The first was most AT solutions will need to be adjusted and customized for each user. Don't be frustrated when it doesn't work out of the box. The second is, if anybody tells you that there isn't an AT solution for your situation, ask somebody else. It simply means that one person doesn't know how to help you. And finally, I said, there are people out there eager to help you solve your AT problems. Join your online support groups, your local MS group, your National Society community, and the AT Makers group. And that's a great place to start. But there's lots of people out there who want to help. And I think that message is important that we get out to everybody. That if you look, we got 3,600 people in this group. I would bet a third of them need help. A third of them are engineers or makers who want to help. The other third, not entirely sure what they are. Some of them are spectators. Some of them might be the people like my sister who want to find a way to help, right? But 2/3 of the people are here just to try and help people who need AT work. And I think that's awesome. So I brag about you guys a lot. And Judy, especially you. Because you always show up. So, all right, let me wrap this up. So if there are any, Ian Price I would have missed it. Ian, I'm glad you showed up. So Ian Price just showed up. He says, sorry, I'm late. But let me walk through this because I wasn't going to. Judy, I'm going to mute you for a second, okay?
Yep.
Because I was hearing me, and that's tough. So I think that one of the things we can do is that the request from Ian Price that came in about a week or 2 ago that said, look, I've been sailing for years. I use this motorized tiller and winch setup, and I can't use that anymore. I need more logic in my switches. It's paraphrasing. Leads us to a really good opportunity. So it led me to do research. I shared this last night. If you guys were on it, I'm going to turn off my camera for a second. But I think it gives us an opportunity to go through maybe a better process or more a more thought out process on this project, right? So this project, this thing that I've got in front of me is kind of the poor man's version of what Ian wants, right? So it's got a feather, which again is too expensive for a lot of things, but in this case, that's got a battery, so it can be self-contained. It's really easy to prototype with. It's breadboard friendly. It's just easy. And then I did a lot of searching, and the group of chip guys gave me feedback as well that we found this part. And this part, so I got to thank Chris Young and some other folks for helping me find it. This PVT 322 is a part which is it's a solid state relay that is inexpensive, signal level, not high voltage level like the crazy expensive ones are, and that allows you to not have a common ground between the controlling side and the thing you're trying to control. And that's kind of big. If I turn this on, I don't know if I can make this thing work. I might be able to make this thing work. Maybe not. Let me see if I can make this work. It doesn't matter. It just blinks. It's not that exciting, but it might start blinking. Hey, look at that. All right. So what's really neat about this is that it controls signal level current, and it doesn't care about polarity. So if I switch these two wires like that, it still works. Okay. That to a lot of us has kind of been the holy grail of what we need in order to be able to have an automated switch or a remote switch. What it really does is it lets us get rid of relays. As John will tell you, they are they just screw up everything. They suck. So that's why this board became such a mess, was because of the relays. So I love the fact that we have a solution. I am literally going to take this exact thing with one more of these chips, and I'm going to put it on a permaproto board. This is just basically a solder version of this. I'm going to put it in a big waterproof box that isn't the right size, and I'm going to ship it up to Ian. And he's going to tell me whether it works or not. And if it does, and I'm willing to bet it will, I will test it well before it is sent to him. But assuming that it works well, we will have our first user. We will have our first minimum viable product of this. And then we'll take the time to say, okay, what do we really want here? What we really want here is we want the ability to add automated switches that are controlled over Wi-Fi or controlled over Bluetooth or are controlled over infrared or whatever it is. We want to be able to make a remote switch or a smart switch. This is exactly what we did for Ella, right? But instead of trying to solve a big problem, let's make one. Let's make one thing which is an automated, you plug in, you got two jacks, you plug them in, and it gives you an A and a B switch that you can control from a microcontroller. And let's take this and let's get it to a team, whether that's a robotics team or just a group of people who want to do this. Let's get 50 of them in the wild and learn the lessons from them. And then at the end of the robotics season, at the end of whatever we know, yeah, we got this. The software's solid. We're using the right chips. It works great on I2C. It works great on over Quick. Great. Then we have somebody like Dimitri go through and productize that item and make it something that now, if you want to buy an automated switch, great. It's just a little board that you buy. You plug it into your microcontroller, and then you just send it signals that say on and off, and it works. I think that is a good first example of something we could do. We could use this request as a way to see if this process really works, if we can plan it. We know it worked in the case of the Freedom Wing, but we don't know that it wasn't just lucky, right? So I think that's something worth looking at. So Paul Hewitt posts, let me see if I can put this up here. I really like demystifying the device. sell for ease of use, but I do think there's a need to maintain the original MVP design too. Well, the original is probably larger. It's probably easier for someone to source the parts and put it together with less skill. It would be a little more future bulletproof of good docs if the sold version became unavailable for some reason. It helps deal with AT devices becoming obsolete. Yeah, so it's a good point. I think one option here would be that all of our designs, whether they're sold or not, need to be published in open source, right? Regardless of whether they're things that we also sell. But you're right that there certainly are things that would be harder for people to do. So you're right. So I don't think that the prototype, the very first one that I send to Ian, needs to be maintained. But you're right. That first pass that gets done by the robotics team, keep it available and published, sure. It does add overhead to maintain that. It might be a really good use for the somebody from Jake or Malad or Chad from Makers Making Change. It might be a really good thing to maintain in their library of solutions, to maintain both the low volume, what you call it, MVP design, lives there separate from the one that you can purchase. It's a good thought, Paul, and you're right. So Jake says tricky balance, very different design constraints for one-off maker friendly build versus something that is produced at scale. Scale is still pretty low, Jake. I mean, you're still talking about making between 100, 500, maybe 1,000 of these. You're not talking about making 20,000 things. And it's interesting that, to me, the audience for the so damn small I lost it. The audience, the audience for this might actually be less technical, but they're buying it and then they're plugging it in. So yeah, very different design constraints. Absolutely true. I think in many cases the software is going to be identical, right? You're just changing form factors by the time we've got the MVP working. So I would like to see if we can get through the tactical business organizational issues of selling something, which are very real and might be insurmountable. Okay. And then I'd like to try it. I would love to have 5 items that are available for sale. And they don't all have to be this, like that joystick, right? How many people popped up and said, I want one when I showed this, right? Let's make a few hundred of them and just sell them. Don't make people apply and prove they have a need. Just sell them. Take the money from them and fund the next round of them. We can still use the robotics kids, or we can use whoever else we want for assembly. Hell, we could have the robotics kids do it as a fundraiser where they keep the proceeds from it. I don't know. I'm not sure how to do this. But I think it's important. And I think it dramatically expands the number of people we can reach. And I think that needs to be the goal. I think 2 of the goals here need to be reach more people, make things accessible for more people, and then make our organization more resilient, so that if they're not in contact with me, or if they're not in contact with Dimitri or something like that, they're still able to get these things without going to kind of the core. So those are my 2 big goals. I'm way over time. Holy crap, I went over an hour. Told you in the beginning I wasn't going to be able to keep it short. But some of it's your questions, so I'm gonna put some of this on you guys. So for those of you who joined in person, thank you. You're all welcome to join back in if you want to. But I think we're probably gonna wrap it up. I will obviously read the questions both on Facebook and YouTube. You always can just email me. I'm bill@atmakers.org. It's not complicated. Also, just post your questions and stuff in the Facebook group. That's where all the conversation happens. And yeah, I think this has been, Judy, you're right. There have been things this year that we learned. Over the last year, we also learned that, like, when the chips were down, it really was the makers who came through with the PPE and stuff, right? So there are pros to this, but I'll continue doing this, and I will continue trying to keep you guys informed. I've obviously been less visible in public than I have been more recently. I've been less so, just because I've been trying to talk less and recover. And obviously, I'm talking fine now, but I probably will be ramping up how much you see me. Probably the most cool new thing to show you is one of these. These are the things I told you guys to buy while they were half price. It was $3, and it's a capacitive touch switch that can send keystrokes directly into your computer, which is just crazy. So I'll make videos on that probably next week. I'll be out of town this weekend. Jonathan and Alyssa are being nice. Yep. And Jonathan, you're one of them. So when I was out of commission, Jonathan's the one who stepped up and made sure you guys all knew about it and things like that. And my wife, Lori, who obviously deserves way more credit than we ever give her here. But thank you all for being a part of this. And let me know if I can do anything for you. Obviously, that's what we're here for. Bye.